Griffin, you can let everybody in. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's so it's so good to see you. We'll give everyone just a minute to get in.
Oops.
So before we get started, I want everyone to know that we do have interpretation. So please go to the bottom of your screen and you will see the globe and click on the globe. If you don't see the globe, that my Zoom recently updated and it doesn't always show up, there's three dots that says more. Click on that, and then you can select your language. Even if you speak English, make sure to select your language or you won't hear a question interpreted if it was in Spanish. If you're on a cell phone, go to the bottom of your screen. You will see three dots, and you can select your language. Julia, do you want to go ahead and tell them in Spanish?
Front door.
Thank you, Julia. Also, we have the slides in Spanish. If you go to the very top of your screen, you will see something that says Griffin Morales screen. Those are the Spanish slides. If you click on that, you will be able to see them in Spanish. Well, let's get started. Welcome. My name is Christiana Morales. You are at Smart Staffing, the Participant's Guide to Building Your SDP Team. I am the executive director here at Self-Determination Institute. I wear lots of hats when it comes to the self-determination program, but the most important for me is that I am the parent of a 24-year-old who is in his fifth year. And for our family, it has been a life-changing program. And I know that it might not be the right program for everybody, but for the people who are in it, it has been really, really a wonderful program. But I will say there is a little bit of a learning curve, and that's what we're here to talk to you about today. My co-trainer today is, I'm going to let her introduce herself, but I'm very honored to have her with us. She has so much experience. Jessica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Christiana. Thank you so much. Definitely incredibly honored as well to be here. Thank you for the invite. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Mercado. I've been working on the financial management service, the FMS side of the self determination program for over 5 years. And this work, honestly, something I truly care about. I'm very passionate about. As Christiana mentioned, this could be a very complex journey. So I am here as a resource, not just for today, but beyond this training. This stuff can be confusing. So please be sure to reach out, ask questions rather than trying to figure it out alone. Remember that you do have allies in this journey. So thank you, Christiane. Back to you.
I love this. And so, couple pieces. One is please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We will answer them. We'll ask the questions out loud to make sure that they're interpreted so everybody hears the questions. So it might take us a little minute to get to the questions, but don't worry, we will get to all of them. We'll also have, after we finish the presentation, an opportunity to raise your hand and ask even more questions. But what we love is for those of you who have your screens on, we love it. We love to see the feedback. Janice, Karina, Krisha, and we love it. It's so Shelly. It's so wonderful to see people's faces and get feedback. Also, if you want to go to the bottom of your screen and use your reaction, if you hear something, there we go. I just saw a reaction go up. Love to see the reactions. Love to know that what we're saying is making sense to you. If you if something is not making sense to you, you can't find the reaction, don't hesitate. You can just put a question mark in the chat. And if I see a bunch of question marks come up, we're going to know, hey, we need to do a little bit better explaining. We're here to make sure that everybody understands these pieces. So we have a three-part series. This is number one that you're at today, and we're going to talk about you being the boss. Session two, which is next Monday, same time, same link, is going to be on finding that perfect match. And session three is being a great leader. So we're spreading it out over three so we don't overwhelm anybody. And let's get going. When my son came into this program, I kind of didn't know what to expect so much. And I really don't think I understood that I was going to become an employer and what that meant and what that entailed. And so I don't want anybody to think that this is too hard for them or too overwhelming because I'm telling you, if I can do this, you can do this. Um, we're going to give you lots of information today, but the intent is not for you to memorize all of this information or to have to take copious notes. We put the slides in the chat. You can download the slides. But in addition, we have a book of all of this information that even goes into more detail than we're talking about for your reference. And there is a PDF of that in the chat for all of you to have, so you will always have a great resource. And I'll tell you a little bit story. When my son was a freshman in high school, somebody came to his school and they talked about supported decision making, and it was something I couldn't even think about at the time. He was 15, and I was like, I can't even think about it. And as he was turning 17 or 18, um, there was the talk about, do we need to conserve? Should we do? And I went, oh, wait a second. I remember that. I remember somebody had talked about that, went back, looked at the information. I want you guys to think of it as that. I want you to know that you have enough knowledge to know what questions to ask, but you do not have to memorize all of this stuff, right? It's enough that you have your resource to look at it, and you will always have your financial management service. You're going to hear me talking about this a lot. Your financial management service is your partner when it comes to self-determination program, and especially the employment part. So we have a roadmap today of 5 areas we're going to cover. We're going to talk about the financial management service models, worker classifications, pay and taxes, insurance, home safety. None of those sound too exciting, do they? But we're going to try to make it as fun as we can, as palpable as we can, and we're all going to get through this. So the first section we're going to talk about is the financial management service model, and Jessica's going to talk to you about that and explain what this even means.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, as mentioned, today's training is called You Are the Boss. So, we really mean that. In the self determination program in SDP, you're not just a participant, you do become an employer, or the legal representative becomes an employer. The individual becomes an employer. So, there is a transition, right? That comes with no longer just being the participant, but also being an employer. And that is a big deal. And we're going to break it down exactly how that looks like by sharing with you the 3 models you can choose from. So, in the self determination program, you have something that most people in other regional center programs don't have, and that is choice. You get to decide how your services are managed and who's part of your team. Now, up until now, you may have been using an agency or a vendor handling everything for you. That changes here in the self-determination program. You're stepping into this new role, again, not just to receive services, a participant, but also as a leader, as somebody that's in charge of those services. You're becoming the employer of those services. So that's the shift. And it is okay if, as Christiana mentioned, it can be a little cumbersome having all the information, but if it feels big, it's because it is big, right? It's a big role. But we're here exactly to tell you how that looks like and walk you through it step by step. So, the first decision you're going to have to make as an employer is choose a model, an employer model that works best for you. There are three options in the self determination program where you can be an employer. We have the bill payer model, the co employer model, and also the sole employer model. And each of these different models gives you also a different level of involvement and responsibility as an employer. So there's really no wrong answer here. The right model is the one that fits your life, your comfort level, your needs. So let's go through it one again. So the bill payer one. And the bill payer model, you're not technically the employer. Instead, your financial management service company, your FMS, pays the vendor or service providers directly based on the invoices they submit. Or if you have purchases, that's what we do as well. Think of it like having someone else handling your bill payments for you, just like the title says, bill payer. So you authorize the payment of your service providers or purchases, but the FMS, the financial management service company, processes them and pays for them. This model works well for those participants who want to use already established vendors or agencies and are not really looking to hire direct workers, direct staff. Because you're not directly hiring here, payroll taxes and employment paperwork are handled by the vendor that you're choosing or agency, not you or us, your FMS company, but the vendor. Okay, so you still have control over who provides your services. You still get to choose what provider, what vendor, uh, but you're just not cutting the checks directly to those employees if you have anything like that. So that is the bill payer model, just a simpler form of an employer standpoint. Now let's talk about a model where your FMS, your financial management service company, takes on more than an employer on your behalf, and that is the co-employer model. Okay. So in the co-employer model, the financial management service company, the FMS, you're going to hear me say FMS a lot and also say financial management service because if you're new, I want you to feel comfortable knowing, like, oh, that's what it is. So the FMS, the company you're choosing, and the co employer model, they are the legal employer. And you, as a participant, as a managing employer, you still have the flexibility to choose staff, but we share, the FMS is going to share those responsibilities of employer. Okay. So, because the FMS is the legal employer of your support staff, that still means that they're going to help you with handling the onboarding paperwork, run payroll, take on legal responsibilities that come with being an employer. But here's the thing, you still call the shots day to day. I don't want you to think that just because the employer, the legal employer is the FMS, calling the shots on making the schedule that is taken away from you. That is not true. You still call, you still pretty much choose who is going to work for you. Okay. What you give up is just some control on the administrative side, on the co-employer model. Because the FMS is the legal employer, they can set their own policies, including limits on the benefits they offer to your employees. And because they are carrying the legal responsibility, this model tend to cost a little more. Okay. That higher employer burden gets reflected on your spending plan. So a few things to keep in mind for the co-employer model. Again, the FMS is listed on official documents as employer. And because they likely employ a large number of workers, there's also certain federal laws that kick in, including rules around health insurance that we will be getting into that in a moment. This model too works really well for people who want flexibility in choosing their staff, but are comfortable working within the FMS policies and structure. And if this model interests you, if you are looking into the co-employer model, I strongly encourage you to interview FMS providers before you commit. Ask them about the benefits they offer to employees and how they break down the employer burden cost and any other employer related costs you should know about. The more questions you ask upfront, the better decision you're gonna make whenever you're choosing a model. Okay, now let's look at the other model where you truly are the employer, and that is the sole employer model. This model is going to give participants the most control, but also the most responsibility. And it is ideal for participants to say, you know what, I'm ready. I want to be fully hands on. I'm ready for this. I want to be the employer. And there's plenty of support for this model as well. I think that sometimes the sole employer model, there was me talking to families through consultations, some of the concerns expressed were, are you going to help me the same way that you're going to help me in the co-employer model? Is it the same support or are you going to leave me alone? And to be honest, the support should be the same. It should be the same in the co-employer versus the sole employer. Again, we're going to go about the nuances as to what makes one different from the other. But again, this model is going to give the most control and also the most flexibility. In this model, the participant or legal representative is the legal employer, not the FMS. Okay, so just like the co-employer model, in the sole employer, you still have decision to hiring, to manage your staff day to day, and you are accountable for making sure everything is done correctly. Your FMS still handles the onboarding paperwork, runs payroll, and helps you stay in compliance. All that stays the same. The key difference between the two models is who carries the legal responsibility. And in this model, that's you, whoever is going to be the employer. So again, you're going to be the one listed as employer on all official documents. And when it comes to benefits, that decision is also yours. You're not required to offer them, but if you want to, you work directly with your regional center and your FMS to figure out how to make that happen on your spending plan. And here's also something worth noting. This model tends to cost a little less than the co-employer model because the employer title falls on you as an individual rather than the FMS company. So the associated costs are generally lower, and that can make a real difference in how far your spending plan goes. So let's just bring it all together, just real quick as a summary. The three models and the different levels of involvement. Again, the bill payer being the most simple model, the co-employer, the FMS being the legal employer, and you still directing your work and choosing your team, and the sole employer, you being the employer of record, you being the legal employer, offering most control and most responsibility, and typically the most cost effective. So again, none of this is better than the others. The right model is the one that's going to match where you are right now, your comfort level, your capacity, and what feels manageable for your life. So please make sure that you think about it, talk it over with your service coordinator, and definitely ask your FMS questions about any concern that you may have, because that's what they are there for, to support you through those questions. I know this probably took a little longer than expected, Christiana, but okay, now going back to you.
This is a big part. This is a big one. And I'll tell you, I remember when we were looking at this self-determination program to begin with, the first thing I thought is I don't want to be a solo. I don't know. How am I going to find people? How am I going to hire people? Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do this. Kind of scared me. I will tell you that I am in the sole employer model now. Um, in I was under the misunderstanding that if I did co-employer, the financial management service was going to do the job postings and hire the people and those kind of things. They do not do that in any of these models. So you're going to self-determination program, you are going to be locating the providers here for you. So that's when we're talking about this is self-determination does mean a little bit more work for you, but it also opens the doors to so many things. So I'll tell you, I was nervous in the beginning. Originally thought I would just do bill payer. Very quickly realized, oh, wait a second, I can do this. Really want you all to know you can do this as well. And that you can change models. So don't worry. Like if you start out and you're a little nervous, you can change models. Now, you should know that every financial management service does not offer every model. So if you want to change the model, you'll have to add, and you want to stay with your financial management, so you have to ask them, do you offer the other models? And so then you'll have those options. What I'll say is I think I get the question every single day of my life, who is the best financial management service? And the answer is the one that works the best for you. And that's why you're going to want to interview them. You're going to want to find the people who work the way you do similarly. So now we're to something called worker classification. Sounds really ominous. It is not as bad as it really sounds. What this means, and I think a lot of you have probably heard this term before in other ways, not as classification, but some people want to be a contractor rather than be an employee. And so so I want to talk about the difference between an employee and a contractor and why this is a big deal with the self-determination program. To start with, if you in California, they are very picky about this because we're going to talk about it a little bit later about taxes and overtime, all of those kind of things. If you label somebody incorrectly, you could get a fine. Now, this is one of those things. You do not need to worry about this. Your financial management service is going to do this for you. They are going to help you. But the reason we want to let you know is because sometimes families come and say, oh, I have this person, they don't want to be an employee, they want to be an independent contractor. And then they have to do a test to kind of figure out where are they a contractor or an employee. I will say most of the people that we hire in the self-determination program fall under the employee category. An employee has a timesheet, but it's not just how they bill that identifies them as an employee. They will work the hours that you set, and you will be providing the supplies for them. This isn't somebody who is doing this as a business. Independent contractors, they're running their own business. They'll have a business name and a business license. They set their own hours. They will bring their own tools, and they will do an invoice. There's a reason this is a big deal, and we're going to talk about it in a moment when it comes to taxes and overtime and those kind of things. But if you do have somebody you want to hire and they say, oh, I want to be a contractor, but they don't meet those things, we may have to go back and say, well, you're technically an employee. And this isn't your FMS being mean or being difficult. They're doing it to protect you, to make sure that we are making that our people are classified correctly. I hear this a lot kind of with people who maybe want to work under the table. And we are working with Medicaid dollars. These are federal funds. So there is no such thing as under the table. So that's kind of where I hear it. Sometimes people say, oh, I want to be an independent contractor. All of our independent contractors, because some people will qualify for this. You might have a music teacher or somebody else who is an independent contractor, that's fine, but they will get 1099 at the end of the year if they make over $600. So this is, government money. We have to be follow those rules. So I know this is a little bit wordy of a slide, but in general, when we talk about an employee, there are some rules in place that have to occur. You have to pay at least minimum wage for an employee. You have to follow overtime rules. You have to have sick pay. You have to have meals and breaks, those kind of things. Have workers' comp for them, which we're going to talk about. So don't worry if you don't know what that is. You have a portion of taxes that you pay. We're also going to talk about that. You may have to cover their health insurance, and you pay for mileage and other related costs for your employees. This is why the state doesn't want you to say somebody's not an employee when they really are, because these are all benefits to those employees, and we don't want our employees to, be taken advantage of in this state. If you are an independent contractor, as we said, they're a business. They're managing their own taxes. They're managing their own insurance. They are running their own business. And we talked a little bit about this already of this classification and getting it correct protects you, it protects the employees, and it's going to protect your budget because you don't want to get fines for having them classified incorrectly. Okay, how is everyone feeling? We're giving you a lot of information. I want to hear, are you awake? A thumbs up. We have a couple questions that I think we would be good to answer. Oh, yay! I'm seeing thumbs up. Okay, we haven't lost you. I do see some questions really quick in the chat I think we should answer. The first one was, you can still have an agency if you want to, right? And I think they were talking about the models. You can use an agency in any of the three models. There's no reason that you couldn't. You could even use a traditional vendored service if that vendor is willing to take self-determination program payments. Not all of them will. So let's say you're thinking about going into self-determination program and you have a day program that you love, you do not want to lose, first thing you would want to do is go and ask them, will you take self-determination fund? Because that might be part of your decision making of whether you want to go into the program or not. They may take it, everything's good, you move on. They may say no, in which case you may have to decide, is it worth the switch? And then I think there was one other question that I saw go by. Um, is an independent contractor the same as a vendor? Jessica, isn't that a great question? Do you want to answer that?
Absolutely. Yes, that's a great question. I did put on the chat, they are part of the vendor umbrella, and I was going to expand on that as well because when you're selecting a vendor, say for instance, I'm going to use the independent facilitator as an example. If I were to be a participant and I meet with an independent facilitator and I love the services and I want to hire her, perhaps this independent facilitator has formulated and set up her own agency and says, yes, Jessica, my independent facilitation agency's name is SDP for Change, right? So she's going to give me her business information for her independent facilitation business, still representing me as my independent facilitator, her still carrying that service. But she got set up because she did her due diligence and she said, you know what? I'm going to go and set up my own business and set it up like this. I'm going to be an agency and I'm going to work under my agency as an independent facilitator. Perfect. We also have the other side, right? That's a business, that's an LLC. So when we're looking at your vendors, when you're submitting your vendors to us, the FMS provider, we're looking to see, okay, great. We're looking at your vendors to your question, and we're looking to see on the vendor who from this vendor is an independent contractor and who from this vendor is a regional center vendor as well, because again, we kind of have to work with them, and who is a business, because we have to make sure that based on this descriptions, based on this, they have to meet eligibility. We have to ask for their business licenses, or the independent contractor. We have to ask for any type of documentation that legitimizes their services. Again, like Christiana mentioned, we don't try to make this hard for you, but it really helps us tell the state, tell the government, hey, these people that were chosen as vendors, these are independent contractors, these are businesses, and this is their documentation, and therefore they're eligible to get payment from this program. So hopefully that answers the question. I know it's a lot, but that's the differences between those vendors.
So, we're going to talk about pay and taxes. Woohoo! Everybody's favorite subjects. What do they always say? Nothing is guaranteed but death and taxes. So, well, we're going to talk about taxes right now. Jessica, take it
Yes,
away.
let's do it. Let's talk about taxes because this is one of the most important things to understand as an employer in the self determination program. There are two sides, as you see in this beautiful visual. I love it. There are two sides to payroll taxes: what the employee, your worker, pays, and what you, as the employer, pay. So these are two separate things, and both of them matter. Okay, so when your employee gets paid, certain taxes are automatically withheld from their paycheck. These are employees' shared of taxes, not your responsibility to cover, but the FMS responsibility to help you to assist, withhold, and process through payroll. Okay. So the employee paid taxes include this is like, for example, me, working right now for All Work or anybody really working for an employer. As employee, when we get our paycheck or W-2, right, we have to pay the government as employees. So we pay the federal income tax, we pay state income tax, we pay Social Security tax, and we also pay some Medicare tax. Those are the employee related taxes that as an employee, you have to take care of those. Now, your employee fills out a W-4 form when they start working for you. So this tells the payroll system, this is going to tell us, the Financial Management Service Company, the FMS, how much federal income tax to withhold from their paycheck. The W form is the employee's responsibility to complete. You cannot tell them what to put. If they fill it out incorrectly, they have to let us know. They have to ask for tax advice, right? That we're not tax advisors. So your FMS will pretty much process payroll based on whatever is submitted at the enrollment. So please, 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 please make sure your employees understand this from day one. Okay. Special note for those leaving employees. This applies to employees who live with the participant's home as well. If you have an employee who lives with you in your home, there may be a tax exemption available to them. Under certain IRS rules, household employees who live in the home where they work may not owe any federal income taxes on those wages. However, I just want to be emphasizing here, however, this is not something I decide or you decide or the FMS decides. It is something the employee needs to confirm and they need to advise. If they need some advice, they need to ask their own tax professional. Because again, if your employee qualifies for that exemption, they need to reflect that on their enrollment paperwork. So the FMS only processes payroll based on what's on file, and it's definitely the FMS responsibility to help you, right? But we cannot advise your employees on their taxes. We don't have legal capacity to do that. That is up to them and a tax professional. Okay, so now let's look at the employer, your taxes, okay? The bottom part of it. This is something that confuses people all the time. And once you understand it, it's going to change how you look at your spending plan. Okay. So as the employer, you do not just pay your employee their hourly wage. You're also required to pay a separate set of taxes and costs on top of that. This is called the employer burden. Okay. So it does come out of your budget, comes out of your spending plan. It does not come out now out of their paycheck. No, this comes straight from your budget. This is pretty much what is it that I'm covering, Jessica? What does the employer burden covers? So it's going to cover your employees' federal unemployment tax, your FUTA, your state unemployment tax, your SUTA, your Social Security, your FICA, your employment training tax, that is beautiful state of California only has it. We need to pay that too. We have the workers' compensation that you need to take care of. And just asterisks here that if there are any other potential costs depending on your FMS and the model, always ask them to give you a full breakdown. There may be another employer related costs, and you want to be fully aware of what that looks like. Okay. Why? Why does it matter so much for your spending plan? Because the employer burden, as mentioned, is on top of your employee's hourly rate. So say, for instance, if you're paying somebody $20, The real cost to you is higher once you add your burden, your employer burden. So in California, that rate generally is running somewhere between 18% to 25% right now. It varies depending on the FMS you choose and also the model. Okay. That is not a small number, you guys. Please, that is real money coming out of your budget. So take into consideration what model is going to work for you and what FMS, because what you're really looking at is when you're interviewing FMS providers, you're looking at how much is it going to cost me to be an employer under this model with this FMS? And what type of benefits am I getting under this model with this FMS? And from there, you can say, for instance, well, I want to be under sole employer. What FMSs are really offering sole employer? Then you can probably break down your search onto three, right? And from there, now you can go and ask questions under three FMSs. How, the employer burden works for them. And based on your research, you can potentially find an FMS that works for you. Because when you're building your spending plan, you have two options. You can list your hourly rate and your employer burden separately. So both are visible, just like right now, right here, what you see on the screen. Um, or you can combine them into one total. Either way is fine. What is not fine is leaving it all together. You cannot leave that out. You have to include it. And I will be very honest with you. In my experience during my whole span here in the program, this gets missed more often than you would imagine by participants, by service coordinators, and sometimes even FMS staff. So as the employer, this is one of the things that I want you to help us help you to make sure it's included in there. Okay. And keep in mind that the employer burden can actually be a deciding factor in which FMS you're going to choose because different providers can charge different rates. And to see what rates, I definitely encourage you to check DDS website for the most up-to-date rates, or call the FMS that you are considering and ask them directly what their employer burden breakdown looks like and what it is right now. And one more thing before we move on, as Christiana mentioned, and as I keep mentioning, your FMS is a payroll processing company that will also support you with the human resources side of the program. That is their lane. But again, they're not a law firm. And unfortunately, we're not tax advisors. So we will do our best. They will do their best. All FMSs are here to help you. But ultimately, they will process what's submitted. So if enrollment paperwork is filled out wrong, it gets processed wrong, and you may not find out until your employee receives their W-2 at the very end of the year. So please take the enrollment paperwork very serious and make sure you and your employees fill everything out carefully and complete it from day one. So once payroll is set up, the FMS runs what you gave them and everything's correctly. Okay, this will pretty much get you started and it will save you so many headaches down the road. So go ahead, Christiane.
The big one
Oh,
is the adding that percentage, knowing that just because you want to pay your employee $20 an hour, you're going to have that percentage on top of it. And you don't have that with providers or vendors, right? Because they are paying their own taxes. And so something to keep in mind. We want to make sure nobody misses that when they do their spending plan because it is important as an employer that you are paying your part of the taxes for them. Okay, now we're going to talk about insurance. Also, we're just full of the fun topics today. Taxes and insurance. So let's talk a little bit about insurance. One of the things is in California, every employer is required to pay 40 hours or 5 days of sick leave per year. So we will be paying that. For your thought on this, know that this is included in your employer burden rate. So you don't need to add anything additional to your spending plan for this. The financial management services will include that in that percentage they give you. But I wanted you to know what it was so you could make sure that your employees know that they have sick time, how they're getting it, and how to that they can use it because we want to make sure they know that this is available to them. Um, it can be a little bit different depending what financial management service you are because the state does give them the option of how they want to provide these hours to their employees. So they can do what they call accrual, which I can never say that word. It just sounds wrong every time, but it means they're going to drip it in. They're not going to give them the 30 hours all at once. They typically will give 1 hour for every 30 hours worked, meaning they're going to earn their sick pay over time. Um, the other option that any employer can have is to say we're going to front load. They're going to give them all of their hours at the beginning of the year. If you happen to be an in-home support service provider, a lot of us are with our family members, they do the front loading. Beginning of the year, you get the 30 hours and you can use it how you want. So it really depends on the business. So it's something you do want to ask your financial management service. How do they do it? And typically how your um, employees will know is if they look on their pay stub, it will usually tell them how many sick pay hours they have available. Now, it will depend on your financial management service how they request those sick hours. So you're going to want to ask them how they say, here's a sick day. I'm turning in for a sick day because it's how you turn in your timesheets. It will be up to them how they're individually going to do it. There is also a very brand new rule that just came up in 2026. It used to be that you couldn't, at the end of the year, you just lost whatever sick pay you didn't use. Um, you can now roll over sick pay to the next year. So they can have some over. But I will also say there can be a max. Your financial management service can say we're not going to let them accrue more than a total of, let's say, uh, you know, 60 hours or whatever. They can have a max that they permit to be um, saved up. The other thing with sick pay, I switched the slide, but for sick pay is if you leave, if your employee leaves, if they have vacation pay, they get their vacation pay. They do not get paid out sick pay if they leave. So if they quit or leave, the sick pay just goes away. It just goes as unused.
That's correct.
So another thing we want to talk about is insurance. Insurance is a big deal when it comes to having employees. Um, and it gets a little bit confusing, but I'll tell you there's a couple main things you need to understand about insurance. If you want more details about any of these things we've talked about, get that PDF out of the chat or get the book because we go into a lot more details. If you really get excited, want to learn all about insurance or any of these things, use the resource to get more details. We're kind of giving you a high level so you have a knowledge that it's out there. So anybody who has any employees, even one employee, must have workers' comp in the state of California. And the workers' comp protects the employee for medical. If they get hurt on the job, that's what workers' comp covers. And so that can be, if you're in co-employer model, we started with models because they kind of go through all of these ideas and choices and options. If you're in co-employer, because they are hiring your employees on their behalf, they will have their business as workers' comp. That will be part of their employer burden. It will be taken care of. If you are in sole employer, it might depend. Some of the financial management services said, you can just buy into our workers' comp. You don't have to worry about it. There's really no difference between their rates between co-employer and sole employer because they're including the workers' comp in it, so you don't have to worry about it. They also might say you can go purchase your own workers' comp. Again, we're talking about self-determination. We like choices, but having so many choices sometimes makes it confusing. Um, if you own a home, and you have a mortgage, you have liability insurance, that typically covers some workers' comp. So you may not need, it may cover your people. I tend to recommend to people not to use their homeowner's workers' comp. I personally live in an area where we have fires and we have what they call California Fair Plan, meaning it's hard for us to get home insurance. If you make a claim against your insurance and they cancel you because of you had a few workers' comp claims, I would have problems getting homeowners insurance again, which is a big deal. You have to have it for your mortgage. So I don't typically recommend that, but we do have some people who make that choice. It's self-determination. You get to choose. The other thing you can do is you can purchase the workers' comp on your own, and then it would be a line item on your spending plan. So you'll see a lower employer burden rate because the workers' comp isn't included, but you will still have to purchase workers' comp. We put a list in the chat that was from the Department of Developmental Services, and it had all of those employer burden breakout. And on some of them, under workers' comp, you'll see to be determined. Those are the ones that would want you to go purchase your own. So that kind of helps you a little bit on that list. You'll know what that means. Um, Workers' comp doesn't have a cap. So in general, if somebody gets hurt, they are going to be covered. Very rarely does it go into the liability insurance. Workers' comp does not include any sort of fault. It doesn't matter if there was nobody gets blamed for it was my fault or your fault, that they just get their medical covered. That's what workers' comp does. When we start talking about liability insurance, this is the insurance that protects the employer. Now, that employer would either be the financial management service or you, if you were in sole employer and you're the employer. Um, these things are they're not medical. So, like if somebody got hurt, like lifting something and they hurt their back or something like that, that would be covered by workers' comp. These are more, let's say, um, they're walking up your path. You left a hose out. They tripped over it. They dropped their phone, and now they want their phone replaced. They're saying this was your fault. You were responsible for that, and that their property was damaged, and they want it taken care of. There's lots of different things liability insurance can cover. Insurance alone could be a 3-session, 3-hour, 6-hour discussion. My recommendation is that if you have homeowners insurance, talk to them and say, I'm going to be hiring people. This is the program I'm in. Do I have appropriate coverage? Um, for financial management services, they're going to make sure that you have appropriate coverage. They are not required to provide liability insurance. So you can ask them, do you have liability insurance coverage? Some of them do, some of them don't. So liability insurance is not a requirement like workers' comp. Workers' comp is. I will say, though, as I said before, if you own a home, you're going to have liability insurance because if you have a mortgage, it is required for you to have. Now, if it's going to, that's why I'm saying you want to ask them, am I covered enough? And when it comes to insurance, it's really everybody's risk, where their risk tolerance sits. Some people are like, I'm good. I don't need the additional liability. Some people might say, I need a lot of it because that stuff worries me. So it's really going to be up to you on that for the liability insurance, your risk tolerance. Next question we have is driving. What if one of my employees drives, right? Well, we want to make sure that they have the proper insurance to drive, right? There's kind of a couple different ways they may be driving. One, they could be driving their own car, or they could be driving your car. So there are some circumstances, maybe somebody has a accessible van for their wheelchair, and they would have their employees driving that van for them. Or, maybe you're a parent and you said, they can drive my car instead of driving their car. It will depend which car they're driving to know for their insurance rules. So the first thing is know that if they're going to be driving, the financial management service is going to have a little checklist of things. They're going to have to provide some information to them so they know that they are safe drivers, right? That they're allowed to drive. The first one is they're going to need to know that they have a valid driver's license, that they have active car insurance, and they may require what they call an MVR, which is a clean driving record. Not all of the FMSs require that last one. That is more of an option. So it will depend on the financial management service whether they have that. The financial management services will typically look that up on their own. They have a service that they do so they can see. So usually it's not something your employee has to show. Once in a while, I'll hear somebody that has to go pull it to give it to them. When it comes to the insurance part, if they are driving their own car, it's very important that that employee notifies their insurance they are driving for work. And I'll tell you why it becomes an issue. Because if something happens and they make the statement, I was working when this happened, and their insurance did not know that they were driving for work, they could say your workers' comp is responsible for these injuries. Your workers' comp will be able to cover. So there will be a battle between the insurances of who pays for what. So it's very important that they notify their insurance, I will be driving for work. Sometimes there's a little bit of an increase in cost. I have never heard of it being significant enough that it's bothered anybody at all, but it is very important that they do notify them. The other option is that if they're going to drive your car, the family's car or the participant's own car, they need to notify their insurance. I have somebody else who's going to be driving my car. Will they be properly, covered? And they have something called non-owner auto policies. Again, this is something you're going to want to talk to your insurance about, your auto insurance, and say somebody else is driving it. I want to make sure they're covered. So that's where the insurance piece comes for driving. Um, I think, Jessica, this one was yours. Is this one yours?
Yes, ma'am, that is mine. And before we move forward about driving, because that's such great information here. Um, Also, when if you do have somebody that's going to drive, and it's going to depend if this employee or worker staff member is going to be driving their own vehicle, then they are to be paid mileage. They get reimbursed mileage. But if they are driving your vehicle, they will not get reimbursed mileage. Okay, I just wanted to be super clear there, because sometimes questions were concerns my employee didn't get reimbursed, but we knew that they were driving the employer's car. So just keep that in mind. That way, also, you know how your funds are pretty much used when it comes to mileage and transportation. Alrighty, now let's talk about the health insurance and whether or not you're required to offer it. It definitely depends on which employer model you choose. So for the co-employer model insurance, it is typically required. So under the Affordable Care Act, employers with 50 or more full-time employees must offer the health coverage to employees working 30 plus hours a week. So in the co-employer model, because the FMS is the legal employer, and because FMSs typically likely employ a large number of workers across all of the participants they serve, and also within their own company, they may be considered what it's called an applicable large employer under the Affordable Care Act. So this means that federal law requires them to offer that health coverage for those employees working 30 or more hours a week. And again, they cannot opt out of that legal requirement. So, Jessica, what does that mean for me, for you, if you're choosing to become a co employer? So, if your employee works for more than 30 hours a week, they may be entitled to health benefits through your FMS. So you should ask your FMS what health benefits they offer if you are choosing the co-employer model, so that you can inform your employees. Your employees deserve to know the benefits they are eligible for as part of working with you through this model. So the costs of these benefits may be factored into the employer burden fees. So please, again, ask your FMS for specifics when it comes to benefits if you are choosing this model. That way you are aware of all the benefits that they're going to be offering your employees. Okay, so bottom line, always check directly with your FMS to understand exactly what's covered and the costs and how your employee can access those benefits. In contrast to the sole employer model, insurance is your choice. In the sole employer model, you are one person. not a company. So maybe we can scroll to the other slide. I love the visual here because it gives you the contrast here also. So um, federal law will not require you to offer a health insurance under the sole employer model. You're not obligated. Again, you are a person, not a company like in the co-employer model, the FMS. So that said, you can choose to offer it as a perk to attract and keep great staff. If you do choose to do that, here is really how it generally works. You include the cost in your spending plan, and then your employee gets their own health insurance plan. They submit proof of payment to the FMS, and then the FMS pays them back that cost directly from your spending plan. This is how I've seen it done. And if this is something you want to offer, please first start talking to your service coordinator to see if your spending plan needs to be updated if you do decide that's something you want to offer your employees. Then, or if anything, simultaneously or even before, please contact your FMS because not every FMS handles this the same way. So you need to ask them specifically, how does insurance support work? How does insurance support work under the sole employer model? What documentation does my employee need to submit? And how should this be reflected in my spending plan? Get those answers before you make any promises to your employees and any updates to your spending plan. Okay.
So I'll say when we had the slide that talked about the three models and they talked about more freedom, but and co-employer is kind of middle amount of freedom and choice, and sole employer, this is one of those areas because no family is ever going to have 50 plus employees. So you will never be required to offer the health insurance. So in the sole employer, you can choose to. We love our employees. If you can offer it, it's wonderful to be able to offer it to them. One of the wonderful benefits of the self-determination program is what we call budget authority, meaning we get to choose the rate we're paying our people, but also the perks. And what has happened with our family was we went from when we had vendor services with the traditional system, it was constantly new people. Like with our respite, it was always somebody new. And my son didn't like new people. He didn't like them in the house. And it became very difficult for us to use them. So we ended up just not using respite at some point. Now we have actually been able to hire people and they have stayed with us because we can give them a good wage and they can have benefits. And so we have that choice. So it's kind of win-win for everybody. Um, Somebody had put a question in the chat, which I thought was really important. So, what we're seeing sometimes is some of the financial management services didn't quite have that 50 plus employees, and they're hitting it now, which means they are now required to offer the health insurance. So the question was their financial management service did not offer insurance, but will soon be offering it. Do I need to create a new spending plan with the insurance? Does it get offered within my financial management service? Does not offer insurance, but will soon offer it. Do I need to update the spending plan when it gets offered? So yes, if there is going to be an additional charge that was not on your spending plan, you will need to update your spending plan to reflect that. And it may adjust some of your hours and things. So I will tell you the regional center will not increase your budget to cover that. So it will have to come out of your current budget. Um, and so when you're looking for financial management services and having health insurance is important to you, it's a great question to ask them. Do you already offer it? Do I need to have a line in my spending plan for it? But those kind of things to kind of plan ahead. I would say this really, because remember, these are people that work 30 plus hours. So
Mhm.
these are more for the people who have 24-hour care, who have a lot of full-time workers. This becomes more of an issue than for the families who maybe have younger kids who have only part-time workers. Then you don't have to worry about this stuff too much, and you can kind of, drink some tea and not have to worry about this. So we're on the last of the five. So, is everybody awake? I want to see. Are there any thumbs up? Has anybody fallen asleep? I'm not seeing any thumbs up. Are you? Oh, okay, there you are. I see you. Your thumbs are coming up. Yay. Okay. We're to finally the last one for today's discussion. Um, when you are an employer, your home becomes a place of business. And remember, we talked about that liability insurance. We also are worried about the safety of our employees, and we want to make sure that everybody is healthy and safe and does not get hurt. So, one of the things that you really need to do when you become an employer is to look around your house and look for things that could create a safety hazard. Um, so, think about things like cluttered walkways or floors that are really slippery. Make sure you put a mat down so it's not slippery. Electrical cords, things that a employee could get harmed with if they were walking and they didn't see it there and they tripped. We want to make sure that our employees are safe. In addition, I will say there are other things that will help with the safety. One is having equipment. Let's say you have a lift that helps you in and out of bed, or you have something for lifting to help you on in the restroom. Make sure that not only do you have equipment that's working and well taken care of, but also that those employees have training to use it properly. So maybe you have an employee that's coming in that hasn't used a Hoyer lift before, that they have somebody train them so they know how to use it correctly. Um, and also encourage your employees to speak up. If they see something that they say, hey, this seems like a safety concern, and then, you're the employer, take care of it. Make sure that you're going to take care of those things. So, I'm going to let Jessica talk about what happens if one of your employees gets injured.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christiana. And this is the last topic for today, and is one nobody likes to think about. I know I don't like to think about it. So, but every employer needs to know it, right? What happens if the employer, the participant, or an employee gets hurt on the job? So, the step one is making sure the person's safe, always first. If it is a medical emergency, we need to call 911 right away. Everything else comes after. So that's first and foremost. Second, we need to file a special incident report. So you'll get familiar with these three words: special incident report. Hopefully, not familiar, not that familiar. I don't want you guys to get familiar with that. But if you do, if something happens, that's something that needs to be filed, a special incident report. Once the person's safe, you're required to file a special incident report. It's called also SIR, SIR. I call it SIR, SIR, with your regional center. So you need to quickly contact your FMS provider. This is not optional. For serious incidents, it typically needs to be submitted within 24 hours. So when we say that your employer responsibility here is huge, you play a huge role, it is very important that your staff gets trained and you get trained as to how you need to communicate with your regional center and your FMS to make sure that we report incidents right away. Um, so do not wait. As the employer, again, you're required to have the workers' compensation coverage for your staff and make sure that you're doing everything correctly. And even if you feel like you or your employees need a refresher on any of this, ask your FMS. Many can provide trainings or materials to help you feel comfortable and confident on what the process looks like. If something happens, you need to know what the process looks like, and your employees as well, so that you guys can execute that process if something was to happen. So keep in mind that FMSs are responsible, and also you can always contact them and ask for that type of training, that type of information, and flyers if they have materials so that you can share over with your employees. I know that is a lot of information. So we want to acknowledge that becoming an employer is a big step, especially when you have to uh, be the leader, right? And having to go with the FMS and work together with your employees to report all these type of instances. I don't know if I missed anything, Christiana, on this one.
No, I think the key was after the person is taken care of and got their medical help, make sure to contact the financial management service. So they're going to help with that workers' comp claims. So we want to make sure that they know what is going on. So always let them know. Um, so what I want you to know is I gave you so much information. Jessica and I gave you so much information. You do not have to memorize this. We're going to put the links in the chat again for these slides as well as the the book. So we actually have a book that you will get the PDF of, so you can have that. You could also purchase the book on Amazon if you want. It's $14.99. We have it in Spanish and English, but you get a free copy with this class. So use that. Um, we don't expect you to be perfect at this. We are recording these sessions so you can watch them again later. If you just feel the urge to hear Jessica and I talk again, they will be posted for the Inland Regional Center. And I think the next section is a little bit funner because we're going to talk about finding your perfect match. And we're going to be talking about how do you post a job? How do you determine what the job is? We talk about agreements and job descriptions, and where do you find people? And what do you do if you need to let somebody go? So we're going to get into the more nitty gritty of actually having the perfect match. And that's our goal is we're going to find the right match. And so those are all of our slides. And I want to know if you have any additional, I'm going to stop sharing so we can see everyone. And so we can answer any more questions that you have. Hold on, where's my share? Stop sharing. There we go. There we can see everybody again. So it was a lot, I know. What questions do you guys have? Feel free to raise your hand. We'll continue answering the questions in chat. Um, I see one that says, Christine asked, who provides the SIR? So I'll tell you, there are two separate things. One is called mandated reporting, and one is called an SIR, Serious Incident Report. A Serious Incident Report is a regional center report. And so the Financial Management Service is required to file serious incident reports. Independent facilitators are required to file serious SIRs. It's just easier to say SIR. Service coordinators are required to file them. So any one of those would notify the regional center, and what we usually would notify the service coordinator about the report, and that's who it goes to. So and it could be a family member could do an SIR. So if there is an incident that happened that they want the regional center to know about, they can also absolutely file one. What happens with those SIRs is the regional center is going to do a investigation to find out what happened, and the intent is that they should determine if there's additional services that are needed or anything that is needed in that situation. Letty, how are you doing? Go ahead and unmute.
Hi, Christiana. Very informative. You never bore us. We always learn something new, so I appreciate you for that. So on the book that it's on Amazon, does it have the slides and also the recording is gonna be via what platform?
So I should have mentioned this earlier on. This was provided by the Inland Regional Center Local Volunteer Advisory Committee. Thank you so much for funding this. And the intent is that I believe they're going to share it on their website, so they will make it available to everybody. These slides are not in the book. So you can download the slides here. It will also be on my website, which I'll put in the chat here, Complete Guide to SDP.org. You will be able to find the slides, the videos, and links to the book there as well. And so hopefully there are lots of places for you to get this information.
Sounds
Kimmy,
great.
how are
Thank
you?
you so much.
Thanks, Letty. I'm glad we didn't bore you. me. Go ahead.
Christiana, thank you very much for the information. I want to make a comment and maybe a couple questions. Um, I've talked to my service coordinator regarding my son. I was told that the fee, if you choose co-employer, is covered by regional center. Is that correct?
So when the employer burden rate is not covered by the regional center, it's on your spending plan. The financial management services have a monthly fee they are paid to like administrate the program. That is paid by the regional center. It's not on your spending plan and it doesn't come out of your budget. So they do get a monthly fee, and that is based on how many services you have, is the rate that they get paid, and whether English is your primary language or not will affect what their monthly fee is. The other one that is important for you guys to know is that they will not increase your budget to pay for independent facilitator services. So if you want to have an independent facilitator once you're in the program, that will come out of that budget and be on your spending plan. They don't increase for that. So just things to keep in mind.
Um, and then a second question is, I'm working through the SDP planning on it with my son for my son, and I'm curious to find out what kind, because most of the kids we have, or my kids, have more of a social issues. So what kind of activities or what kind of things that you can put on the budget or you can request? That's the question I have.
Okay, so there's two different pieces here.
Yeah.
One is the budget is based on the traditional system services, and they have purchase of service policy rules. So depending on your regional center, especially around social rec, your regional center might have a policy. Like you can have two social recs a year or a limit, or they can have limits. Um, some of them don't have any limits, some of them do. So that piece of what can be added to your budget for it could be limited, right? However, once you get to the spending plan side, those purchase of service policies do not apply. So you could say, well, you know what? I want to spend more of my money on social rec. And so we're going to do many different things. And so you're not limited on the spending plan side. So on the budget side, how much they're adding to your budget could be limited. I will also say this is the perfect world where we have a lot of freedom on our spending plan. What we are seeing is some regional centers have more restrictions and they are asking if they saw it in the budget, they want to see it on the spending plan. That is not how self-determination was intended, but sometimes we have to live with what we have right now to be in the program. So in those cases, you want to make sure that you're asking for all the ones that you would want potentially in your budget. As far as what you could put into it, um, the I'll give you a little history super quick. So at one point we had a huge market crash and they removed social rec completely from regional centers. By the time they came back many years later to add it, all of the vendors had gone away. And so what they had done is said, well, you can uh, pay first and we'll reimburse you in the traditional system. Unfortunately, that's not something that can happen in self-determination program. There is no reimbursement in the self-determination program. But it also, they stated very clearly that social rec does not need to be a therapy. It can be for fun, just purely fun, and that it can be in their home one-on-one. Maybe it's a piano teacher coming to their house. That's fine. Or it could be out in a group. It could be at a local karate studio. It could be a program specifically for people with whatever their diagnosis is. So social rec is kind of whatever you want it to be. For ideas for it, person-centered plan is the place that's really going to tease out what they want to do. What you want to do is think about if it's a minor, think of it more like a family-centered plan. If it's an adult, what do they want to do? What are they interested in? The sky's the limit because we don't have to use vendored services anymore, right? So maybe they want to do a ceramics class, but they need somebody to go with them to assist, right? Those are the things that you want to do, you can come up with. So that's that's where the choice comes in self-determination program. So did that kind of answer your question in a very, very long-winded way?
I think so. I think so. Thank you.
Are you looking for ideas of things that people are doing?
Yes, yes, yes. That's what I'm looking for.
So what does your loved one like to do?
My son,
Uh-huh.
he likes to go thrifting, occasionally go movies, occasionally maybe I don't know, we've taken him to bowling. Um, so so those are some of the things that I have in mind, but I don't know, what are the limitations or what else can he do? Or
So
just
those are all
restricted to those.
things. So some of them may be paid for and some may not be paid for, but somebody to
Mhm,
go with him could potentially be paid for. So if he likes going thrift store shopping and he wants to go with somebody, somebody else other than mom, you could have
mhm,
somebody that goes with him and that could be a fun outing for them, right?
mhm,
Movies, typically the participant would pay for their own movie ticket to enter the movie. But if they bring
mhm,
somebody with them, their ticket would be paid for, whoever
mm.
goes with them. Um, uh, Wait, you had one more. Bowling. Bowling, again, if it's a one-time thing, he might pay for his own thing. If it's a class, he could pay for a bowling class with his
Mhm.
self-determination, right? So there's kind of that limit of classes can easily be paid for through self-determination. If it's kind of more you're just going out and doing something, then it may not be paid for. So,
Got it. Okay.
yeah. And then again,
Thank
it's going to be the things he's interested in. People are putting some great ideas. Swimming, dance class, gym memberships.
Got it.
So, and what I'll find a lot when we do a person-centered plan is sometimes my clients who were adults were never asked what they wanted to do. They like, I don't know. It's nobody's ever even asked me what I want to do. And they might spend their first year trying different things, going, well, I think I might want to try this and I might want to try that. And so that's where that flexibility is really nice in self-determination
Mm.
programs. So they can kind of figure it out.
To one last question. I'm sorry, one last question, and then I'll have somebody else move on. I know I know of a service coordinator that works in Sacramento. She told me that you can request for funding to do modification to the house if it's pertaining to his well-being. Is how accurate or true that is?
So remember, it's needs based,
Yep.
and I
Hmm.
will tell you what some of the limitations on home modifications would be. It cannot be something that's like permanent to your house. So it would be so or it could be something, it has to be related to their disability and it like they won't do it for like a rented, like if you live in an apartment, they're not going to do a home modification that's permanent, right? They're not going to do anything that's permanent that's going to increase the value of your house. So in other words, um, let me think of something. They're not going to redo your kitchen with all the counters lowered, and you get a whole new kitchen. That's probably not going to happen, right? So,
Hmm.
but like handrails in a shower would those kind of things, a ramp to get in, those things are possible.
Mm, got it.
So think of those kind of things. Um, just remember, it's always needs based. So when you're creating that person-centered plan, that's really when you're going to identify those things. And is there something that's impeding his independence that if you had something changed in their house would give them more independence? So, uh,
Got
and
it. Thank you.
you're welcome. And uh, Miriam put in the chat, which is, are you with Inland Regional Center, Kimmy?
San Diego.
Oh, okay. We were just gonna say because Inland has a list of what's allowable and not allowable. I don't think San Diego has that. Do they have one? I don't think they have one. But you could ask. I don't think they have one, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Again, it can vary by regional center.
Got it. Thank you.
Elva asked, my adult special needs loves theme parks. Can we pay an individual to take them, spend the day with them? This is a very common one we hear all the time. So, a the participant would have to pay for their own entrance to the theme park. They will not pay for like Disneyland or Universal Studios or anything like that. But if you have somebody come with you, it is labor law that you have to pay for employees' entrance fees. Is this a push and hard with some regional centers? Yes, but it is required by labor law that we would have to pay for, yes, that participant, that helper that goes. The argument we often hear is, well, ADA requires that they would permit somebody to come in with them. And so there's three things that they need to have in order for it to be on a spending plan that it clears. It has to be federally reimbursable, means it's from that service code definitions. A generic resource is not available, and it is on a goal on their IPP and related to their disability. There can be an argument that a generic resource is available. I will tell you, ADA is not a generic resource, it is a law. A generic resource is a business that gets federal funding that is available to everybody. Think about the school district as a generic resource. ADA is not a generic resource, and sometimes they will argue, and you may have to explain to the regional center if this is not a generic resource, and we are not responsible for enforcing ADA laws. Um, if you can get them to let the person in, great. You can use that money for something else. So it never hurts to say, hey, will you let them in? But I will say that I have clients who, like, I had one who loved the zoo. And their regional center said, hey, you've got to use ADA, and said they would go, and it would be a huge argument. And by the time they finally said, okay, well, we got to call this person over and this person over, fine, we're going to let them in. At that point, the client was having a full meltdown, didn't want to go. And I said, this is not accessibility. So we should not be required to do that. So, short answer, yes, they do need to pay for employees' entrance fees. So, labor law. Um, Beatrice Dover, I think Beatrice was adding some more ideas for you, Kimmy, coding classes and piano lessons. So we got lots of ideas popping up in the chat, which I love. Thank you guys. Christine put gym, fitness classes, martial arts, sporting activities, music, art, go-karts, trampoline parks, laser tag, arcades, mini golf, and bowling. So I love it. I love it. I'm so many great things. Just think about really anything in the community that they're interested in, they can potentially do. Elva had said, thank you for the great ideas. Letty said, can insurance costs for sole employer be on the spending plan? So now, I'm not sure which insurance you're talking about, Letty. The workers' comp is going to be, workers' comp could either, in sole employer, either be included in the employer burden rate or on the spending plan. It depends on your financial management service, whether they included it or not. Other insurance, like health insurance, so if you're in sole employer and you want to offer health insurance, yes, you could put it on the spending plan. There's some other insurances that are out there, liability, that you would kind of have to negotiate with your regional center of, I want to add liability, I want to add EPLI, which is employer, what's employment practices? Oh, EPLI, I'm not great with the acronym. I've forgotten what it means, but it's basically if you have like an error, like I'm interviewing somebody and I asked a question I wasn't supposed to, or I missed something in a contract. It's kind of like errors and omissions, is something that could potentially be put on there. Again, there's an insurance for everything. So I would say back to that, your level of tolerance, risk tolerance. I mean, we're in California. Anybody could be sued for anything. that's the world we live in. So you really have to determine, your level. I wouldn't probably want to spend my entire budget on insurances because remember this is they're not going to increase your budget for these insurances. So a lot of it's coming out of those could be provided services. So, kind of just balance that out. Keep that in mind. Um, oh, wait, I'm getting some more ideas. Cooking, music, top golf camp. So I'm lots of great ideas in here. Um, Julia, there is a question by Ismay at 550. Can you translate? Great question. Um, You would just schedule employee one, employee two. You, as a participant, are creating the schedule. Now, I will say that dependent on your financial management service, so because you have a very specific case where you're going to need 2 to 1, when you're interviewing financial management services, make sure they're going to permit it. We have some where their systems don't permit two people to be logged in at the same time. So that could be a problem for you. Some regional centers want it noted in the notes that they do permit 2 to 1. So, for this person in the notes, we do require. So it's something you're going to have to work a little bit with their service coordinator and your financial management service. But yes, you can absolutely have 2 to 1 services, and you would just list them as employee one, employee two, and you would fix it with the scheduling. Um, Isaiah asked if you're a in-home support service worker, you can go in with your recipient for free with their ticket or annual pass. Yes, so that is true that some of the parks will absolutely let people in to the parks. And again, that saves you money. That money can be spent on other things. So that's great. I'm not against using ADA. I think ADA is great because then we can use that to do something else. Um, I just don't like it to be a requirement. What we don't want is the employee to pay their own entrance fee because it is labor law that their entrance fees need to be paid. Um, so we're almost out of time. We have 2 more minutes. Oh, Natalie put in Employment Practices Liability Insurance, EPLI. Thank you. I totally lost the acronym there. Letty, go ahead.
I have another question. So, say my son, he's taking drawing classes and he's with the P via Zoom and he's with the PA at home. Is that considered 2 to 1?
No, I would not, because one would probably be a provider and the other is the employee. So, my guess is the person on Zoom an employee or is it a
Say
provider?
like say say we hire him for self-determination to teach my son how to draw, and he's
Mhm.
taking a drawing class via Zoom. But then he has at home his PA for safety. Would that be considered 2 to 1?
So it would depend how the person teaching the drawing is. If they are an employee, then it would be considered 2 to 1. If they are a business, then it would not be.
Okay, so say if they're both part of my staff, it would be 2 to 1.
It would be 2 to 1, and you could just explain to the regional center that's what we're doing, and put a little note on there that, have the regional center approve it. So you can, the idea is that in specific cases, you can use 2 to 1 on and off. Like some people don't need 2 to 1 all day long, right? Some of them it's
Right.
on and off. So,
Okay. Thank you.
and then Isaiah put in the chat, Knott's Berry Farm is the one that will permit IHSS workers to come in. Very good to know. So if you're in Southern California or you're visiting, know that they are one of the ones that will permit the caregivers to come in for free. Um, Ayana, go ahead.
Christiana, I just wanted to say that San Diego Zoo will allow IHSS worker or just personal assistant to come in, but you have to be careful because usually when you get parking for free, you have a disability. In this case, you will have to pay for parking. This is their policy. So recommendation is when you go to places that ADA compliant, when the entrance for participant is free, just research it so you're not surprised by any other fees that are imposed on you.
Excellent point. Thank you. So yeah, do a little research beforehand. Will help keep that. And then I'll tell you, so if you know beforehand you're going and it's something that where the financial management service can pay, they can get a ticket beforehand. Like if they go to the movies all the time and they can purchase the prepaid tickets and you can have them ready to go too. So kind of you can plan ahead that way. So we are out of time. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope that this is helpful for you. We know that there's so much more to learn, so I'm so excited about the next two that are coming up. And so we will see you next Monday, hopefully, same bat time, same bat channel, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you all. Bye.
Christiana,
Yes.
I sent you a couple questions. I'm not sure if you get a chance to see the email.
To my personal email?
I believe so.
Oh, I'll check. I haven't. I've been very busy. I haven't looked up, but I will look at my email.
Okay,
If
thank you.
not, send it again. Send it again.
Okay. Mhm,
I usually
thank you.
try to answer within 24 hours. So if I don't, it might have gotten lost in the shuffle. So
Okay, let me resend it. Thank
okay,
you.
perfect. Perfect.
Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. Bye-bye.